Hello. In this video, we're going to introduce you to the basics of Microsoft Excel using the Guided Project 1.2 from the Microsoft Excel in Practice series. This is not only going to walk you through the steps that are used, but I'm going to make a special effort to explain all the different concepts that go into it. Make sure you pick up the vocabulary that goes into it too. This is really a project that's going to show what Microsoft Excel is capable of for somebody that's relatively new to it. Let's get started. This is going to be one of the SimNet projects, and I've taken the time to log into SimNet ahead of schedule. And whenever you want to look for one of the projects, you'll be able to just click the Projects button along the left side. Now, I know that you're probably going to be working on catching up to me on this one because I've already logged in. Remember, at any point you can pause this video, and I don't expect anybody to watch it at full pace and catch everything that I'm saying non-stop and keep up with me. I expect you'll be pausing this video plenty of times to stop and catch up. So once you're into SimNet, hopefully I've given you enough time to do that. Once you're into SimNet, you'll go through the projects, and in this case, I have a number of Access projects that we'll get to eventually. I'm heading over to the Excel projects, which are alphabetically after the Access projects, and you'll find that you have the option for Guided Project 1-2 for Excel. When you click on that, it's going to take you to a very important page where you just absolutely cannot do this project without accessing this page. There's a best practices document. The very first time you do anything, you're going to have to read this and give the I understand acknowledgement on screen. You only have to do that the very first time you do a SimNet project. But the two really important files are down here in the lower left corner. One are the instructions. This is going to tell you what you have to do. You'll notice that it's good for either Office 2013 or Office 2016, and the same goes with the instructions that you'll see in this video. And you'll also see a start file. Now the start file is, even if you were to create a blank document, you're still going to have to use a start file from them. This has a secret code in it that prevents people from trading their files along. In large colleges and totally online schools, there is a habit to try to spread documents around and have one person do the homework for many, and this makes sure that that doesn't happen. We have a much smaller school with a smaller class size. We don't really have that sort of problem here, but the software is designed this way, so you're going to have to make sure that you always use the instructions from the web page and the start file from the web page too. I'm going to open up the instructions, and this is just going to be one of the Adobe PDF files. I'll open it in the Acrobat Reader. And when this opens up, I'm going to do something that you don't have to do. You can keep the two files open separately. I recommend printing the instructions so that you can follow along on paper and maybe even cross off instructions as you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to the top of my screen and do a couple size changes so that it makes it easier to read these steps. And you can see that we're going to follow these basic descriptions from the assignment, where we are going to essentially edit and format a spreadsheet. It's for the Eller Software Services Company. It contains their client information, and we're going to use the various skills that are included here. And we're going to start with step number 1, which is how every project is going to begin. You have to open the specific file. That's called the start file. You'll see it says right up here, this is our start file. And remember, our start file is the thing in the lower left corner. And I'm just going to open that in Excel. This will automatically launch the original project. And you'll see that it's going to open it in protected view. You'll see there's a warning up top that if there's something about enabling editing, which we see right here, we should use that button at the top of the workbook so that we can edit it. So in Excel, I'm going to enable editing. Takes that bar away. I'll move mine to the bottom half of the screen so that you can see what the instructions as you also see the work at the bottom half of the screen. And the very first thing that they want me to do is to save the file. We're going to save the file with a name that it automatically will change to. If you have something from your instructor that says to choose a different name than what they give us, then you'll have to make sure you change it to that. But they just say that the step begins by pressing F12 on the keyboard, which will open up a Save As dialog. There's a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to follow the exact instructions that they give using the F12 button, which are those very top of the keyboard buttons. And when I open this up, it'll ask me how do I want to save it. I'm going to get rid of that copy of thing. I'm going to move to my Documents folder. Notice these are the steps that they give you here. Locate the folder where you want to save it. So I switch to Documents, rename it, and here's my new name down here. And you'll see they've added my personal name to the very front. When you do it, it'll be your personal name, but there are other names your instructor might want to use. If they want a different type of name, go with the name that they give you. If there's any situations where the instructions don't match what your instructor gave, definitely go with the instructor version. And then once everything's ready, they say click Save. So I'm going to click Save down here. And you can see up top, we have saved the file under the new name. Now we've got a copy of our own that we're ready to start editing. And what this project is all about is being able to see all the different things that this software does. Just by peeking below, it looks like there's a lot of information added in. And the basics of Excel say there's only 3 things that you can put in any given cell. You can either put text, like these client names, these labels up here, all the different names. You can put numbers, like where you see the phone number over here, where you see the zip code, where you see these decimal numbers over here. Those are really the only 2 things that you can put in a cell. There is a third thing that involves calculations and different kinds of math. We're going to see one example of that today, but that's a lot of what Chapter 2 is going to cover. But this is really a way of saying, why are we doing this? Why are we bothering to type all of these different things in boxes when maybe we could just open up Microsoft Word and use a fancy table as they would design it there? You'll quickly see that Excel is designed for laying out data, passing it on to people so that you can quickly analyze things, and taking care of massively repetitive tasks in a very fast way. We're starting out here with step 3, our first manipulation, where we're going to choose a theme. And what a theme is, essentially it's a color scheme, it's a set of styles, set of fonts, a set of options that are all going to be preloaded so that when we want to choose between how we're going to style things, a lot of things will be pre-made for us already. You'll notice in the instructions, whenever they give on the instruction sheet, they're going to tell us exactly where things are. I have to click the Themes button, but let's imagine I don't have any clue whatsoever where the Themes button is, as many of you are probably thinking now. They'll always tell you what tab it is and what group that tab is in. So the tabs are the options across the top, and it says the Page Layout tab is what I want. So I'm going to switch to Page Layout. And then the groups are these little things in between the lines. Here's the Themes group. Here's the Page Setup group. Here's the Scale to Fit group. They told me to find the Themes group, which is the first one, and it's that Themes button I want. So when I click that, I will see a gallery of options open up. Each of these is a preview of what it could look like if I chose an individual style. If I choose Berlin, you're going to see this kind of background, these kinds of fonts chosen. And as I hover over them, notice in the big area here, you'll see a preview of what it looks like. So here's a little bit of what it would look like if I chose Berlin. Here's a little of what it would look like if I chose Basic. Here's Ion. Here's Slice. Organic. They asked me to choose Retrospect. So I'm going to choose Retrospect, and it will, those choices that we were going to preview, the look of it that we were previewing, now it's been permanently added into the file. I mean, I could go back and change it if I wanted to manually do that, but everything from Retrospect is now loaded. Just by making this one change, we've already changed every cell in the table. So you can start to see how this is a much more advanced feature than some of the things if we were working with tables in Word. Now it's time to actually start putting data in here. We're going to enter and format a bunch of data, and the first thing it says is select E5. What is E5? Each of these little squares that you see, and now they're rectangles on the most part, but each of the rectangles that you see, the little boxes that you can type in, is called a cell. A cell is given a name by choosing the letter that you see in the column. Here's column E. And you will follow the letter by a number. Like here's 5, the row 5. So you get the letter from the column, you get the number from the row. Where they intersect, right here, that's called a cell, and its name is the column letter, the row number, and if you're ever uncertain if you click the right one, there's something called the name box right here. You can look to make sure that you clicked in the right place. So it says E5. I did get the right box, E5, and it wants me to type something here. This is going to be one of those three things you can type. It's just going to be a number, it's going to be text, or it's going to be a formula. MN is just text, short for Minnesota. So I'm going to type MN in there, and like the instruction up top says, hit enter when I'm done. Automatically, the place that's chosen moves down below once I hit enter. But it tells me again, at this point, I want to hit E5 and go back to where I started. Now here's the second big thing that you're able to do with Excel that makes it such a great tool to use for this kind of work. Just as you can see, MN is here, and you see all these zip codes are pretty much the same. All of these are locations within Minnesota that are listed for all these clients from this imaginary business. You'll see from 14 to 13, well, from 5 to 13, these are all of the clients' names and addresses and phone numbers and cities and such, and they're all in Minnesota. If we were using most other software, we'd have to click in the next box and type MN, click in the next one and type MN, click in the next and MN. It becomes a pretty repetitive process here. So another advantage of Excel is that they have something called the fill handle. And if you look down in this corner of the box, you'll see a little green square in the lower right corner of the cell that we chose. And you'll notice when you hover over it, it actually changes the cursor. You go from the big white cross to the very thin black one. When you see the thin black one, you know you've got the fill handle. And they say click and drag the fill pointer to E3. Now I'm going to click and drag it there. I'm holding for a second while I finish this description of it. Instead of having to type everything, what you're doing is you're saying that because we grab the fill handle from E5, whatever's in there should suggest what happens for all the other ones that we drag it down to. In this case, it's going to figure out we want MN in all of those boxes. The moment I let go of the mouse button, it automatically fills in MNs for all of those. That prevents us from having to do a lot of typing. You'll find that there's a lot of amazing uses for this. If you put January in one cell and drag the cursor, then it'll fill in February, March, April, May, June, all the way through all the rest of the cells. Same thing if you type Monday and drag it, you'll get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that you don't have to type all these things out. The fill handle is one of those really intelligent elements in Excel that takes care of a lot of the work that we would have had to do by hand. Now we're going to start manipulating the way things look. C5 through C13 is what they want us to select in step D. So I go to the correct column here, C, and I'm going to start in row 5. Where do they meet? Here's C5. Remember, you can make sure by looking in the name box. It wants me to select C5 down to C13. I've chosen them all, and you'll see that it's labeled phone number, but it doesn't really look like a phone number. It's just 10 letters all strung together. What we're going to do is we're going to have, even though we're going to keep those numbers in Excel, we're going to tell Excel to fake it for us, make it look like a phone number. This starts by doing F1, so we'll get what's called the Format Cells dialog box. You start this by pressing down the Control button in the lower left corner of your physical keyboard, the things that your fingers are typing on. You'll hold down Control and press the number 1 at the same time and let them both go. And you'll see this Format Cells box opens up, as we see step E is supposed to. In F, they say click the number tab, that's already chosen, and we click Special under Category. What we're doing is we're telling it how we want our information to appear. If we wanted a number, we could make it look that way, and we could tell how many decimal places we want. If we wanted currency, we could turn it to look like money. There's accounting options, dates, and times. But we want something special. We specifically want a phone number. And as you see on the next step, it says select phone number and click OK. So I select phone number, and I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see what happens. We have these 10-digit numbers here. The moment I tell it to turn it to a phone number, it's going to change them all to look like what the sample looks like. Watch what happens over here when I hit OK. It adds the parentheses for us, adds the space, adds the dash in the middle. What's really stored in there is still just the 10-digit number, but now we've formatted it so that it looks the way that we recognize as a phone number. There's a couple other features that Excel has that allow you to really speed up your work. And this is really where the third option comes in. You have text, you have numbers, and then you have the formula. A formula is anything where you'll automatically do calculations, and it's actually smart enough so that it can start to figure out what you want even without you having to take the work of doing it. First, we're going to label the line where we're going to have a bunch of things added together. It says type total in A15. We go to column A, we look for line 15. Here's the cell where they meet. It says A15 in the name box, and it just says to type total in it. We can put something in a blank cell just by typing on our keyboard, and when we're done, we hit enter. Total is now there. So we've accomplished step A. Now we're going to switch over to cell I15. I select I15, and there's something called AutoSum. Not only is it going to add a bunch of numbers together for us, it's also going to figure out which numbers we want added together. It might get it wrong, and in this example we'll actually see that it does get it wrong, but it makes it very easy to fix so that 90% of the work is taken care of for us. So it says click AutoSum. Where's AutoSum? Remember, you can always check their guide, Home tab, Editing Group. Here's our Home tab. That's not editing, that's not editing, that's not editing, here's editing at the very end. So in the Home tab Editing Group, we should find AutoSum. Here it is up here. And when we click it, it's going to automatically figure out that because we put it in the cell, we probably want to add up all of these different things. And it gives us what's called a range over here. It says I15, and then there's a colon, which you can read as through. I15 through I14. Excuse me, I5 through I14. So it's called a range, and it really means everything from here, I5, down to I14. You'll also notice that it writes it, in this case, in blue. There's a light blue I5 and a light blue I14. And you can check to make sure that it matches what you expect, because there's a blue line that goes around this whole area. So the blue line represents what's written in blue lettering. Now, we don't actually want it to go all the way to 14. That's just a blank line that isn't really included in this. So let's change it. It's blinking right down here, ready for us to make a change. All we have to do is hit backspace and draw the right area. I'm just holding this down when I click on the first box, and as I hold the mouse button down, I'm going to the last one that I really want and letting go. Now, there's another way to do this. If I were to look at what was originally chosen, I5 through I14, another quick way to do it is in the formula bar. That's this white area above all the cells, and it says the same thing that appears in the formula when you're first typing a formula. I can also change it to the right way by clicking here and just hitting backspace to get rid of the 4, replacing with a 3, and now you'll see the box changes so that it only goes down to 13 instead of 14. So it's two quick ways to change it. Either one is going to work for us. And when you're done, it says to press enter, but I'm going to wait a second so that you can see what happens. If you look at all of these numbers, we have some that are as large as 42,000. There's a couple thousands here, a couple thousands there. There's another almost 1,000. There's a 7. What it's going to do is, because it says sum, the sum is what happens after you add a bunch of things together. It is going to add together everything that's in all those boxes. What's up here isn't going to change. What's in the cell is actually the original formula, but what will appear within the cell, what it looks like it'll be, is the answer to what happens when you add them all together. So I'm about to hit enter now, and you see it replaces it with a value that's almost 70,000 big. Click on that cell, 69,906.18. But when you look what's in the formula bar, that's the original formula we just typed in order to calculate all this. So this is what's really there. This down here is what the answer to the problem is. So the real formula is up here. This is just the results of the formula. Now there's a couple styling things that we're going to do first, but we will come back to formulas and something that you can put in formulas called functions. That is absolutely what Chapter 2 is all about. So we'll get more to that into that in the next video. For now, let's head back and see a couple of styling things that we can do also. Odds are you see it at full screen. I just scrolled back up to the top because mine doesn't fit entirely. And it says click on cell A1 and drag over to, we want to select A1 through I1. If I clicked on A1, I'm holding down the mouse button, dragging to the right, and you can see it doesn't matter if I do it in a sloppy way. When I go back up, it'll just forget the stuff that was down below. As long as I end up in I1, everything's fine. I've chosen all of those, and what merge and center does is you take a whole bunch of cells, like in this case we have the I think 8 cells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cells that we have going across the top, and by merging them we turn them into one large cell, and it'll center the text also, so it moves it into the middle of the cell. I click merge and center here, home tab alignment group, and you'll see that all those 9 cells suddenly becomes one big cell that goes all the way across the top, and the text that was way over here moves right into the center. It's going to ask us to do the same thing again with A2 through I2. So I select those 9 cells, I hit merge and center, and predictably becomes one big box and centers that also. So this is a quick way to get out of the bunch of graph paper tiny little cells and create big areas for things like your titles and subtitles here. We've finished the first of the 4 pages, and the 4th page actually just shows us what our final product should look like. And now we're going to hit one of those additional power options that you have. This is called cell styles. A style is a combination of visual things that you can add all at once. We could, in Word, you might remember you were able to change font size by changing the number. You can change the font style by picking a new font name. You can change the italics and the bold and the underlining and the colors and the background colors. This is called a style, and each cell can be changed all at once just by picking one of the appropriate styles. We're going to change the style for A1. So it says just click A1. I'm going to click where we know A1 starts, but remember A1 actually now goes all the way across. If I click it here, it's still going to say A1. Click it here, it's still A1. I've chosen A1, and they say go to the Cell Styles button. Home tab, I'm on the Home tab. Cell Style, the Styles group. No, Styles group. I want the Cell Styles button. Here it is there. And when I click it, we're going to get a gallery again of different options. That is the official word for what you see down here. This is a gallery. And you'll see that as we hover over things, the top option changes. This area here in A1 changes to match whatever it is that I'm hovering over. I get to pick now which style do I want for this. They tell us to pick the title style. And they say it's in the titles and headings category. Here's our custom category. Here's our good, bad, and neutral category, data and model category, titles and headings. That's what we wanted. And they say choose title. Here's title in the title and heading group. When I click that, you'll see that the color changes to a light gray, the size changes to a much larger style, and suddenly the font changed as well, the style of the font itself. So all that changed just by choosing one style from the styles group. I'll undo it for a second so that you can see here's what it originally looked like. Redo it. There's all the changes all from just a single click on the style gallery. They're going to have us change the subtitle as well. So I'm going to click on A2, anywhere in A2 works. Go to the Cell Styles button. Now they want heading 2. So Cell Styles. Where do we see a heading 2? Here it is. Heading 2 in the titles and headings group. So I click that and you'll see the bottom row changes. Here's what it was before, here's what it is after. I'm doing the undo and redo so that you can see it. Remember, you don't have to do that yourself while you're making your project. Now we're going to start getting into changing entire groups of cells at a time. If I select A4 and all the way through A15, A4 through A15, you shouldn't have to scroll, but I do because I'm doing instructions in Excel on the same page. Now I've chosen all of those just by holding down at A4, keeping the mouse button down and dragging it all the way down to A15. However, Control lets us choose different groups of things at the same time. So it says, now that we've chosen these, we're also going to hold down Control. This is that lower left button on your physical keyboard that you've been typing on. So I hold down that button, and now I'm going to select another range, B4 through I4. Here's B4. I'm going to drag all the way to I4. And when I let go of the mouse button, and now I'll let go of Control also. When I let go of them, you'll see that both of those options are chosen. Here's the first range we chose. Here's the second range we chose. Because we held down Control in between, we have both of them at the same time. Now I'm going to give these a styles change. We want the Cell Styles button, same one we've been using over and over and over again. Styles group, Cell Styles. And it wants us to choose something called 40% Accent 1 from the Themed Cell Styles category. Not the category, not the category, not the category. Here we go, Themed Cell Styles. And it's 40% Accent 1. So what is in the instructions at the top, I've matched in Step E. I click that, and you already see a preview on this side of it. It starts out with this, all of it's white, and the selected stuff is gray. When I hover over the accent, it shows me what the final product will look like. So that is what they want, so I'm going to click that. And now the change is made official. I'm going to click anywhere else just so that you get a better view. And there is the change to all those different cells. And we did that just by selecting them and doing a single click. There's one final change they want. They want something changed in I-15. I have to scroll down to that. Here's column I, row 15. So this is where they meet. Check it in the name box to make sure. In the Cell Styles button, again, here's the Cell Styles. They want us to find total in the Titles and Headings category. Titles and Headings category, here's total. I'm going to click that, and now when I click outside of it, you see it's added these orange lines around the edge. So if you look at what a style can change, we've seen an awful lot in these past couple steps. This changed the font size, the font style itself, the color of the font. Here we changed the background colors. Here we added lines underneath, where we have a double line at the bottom, a single line at the top. All of these things are changed just by choosing a single style. It's one of those super powerful things that you can see happen in Excel that make it so much easier than trying to use old style techniques in Word. Next up, we're going to do something that really changes the visual style. We are going to rotate the text, which is kind of like turning it to a different clock date. Clock position, imagine the arm of a clock rotating around. Wants us to select A4. Here's A4. Wants us to select A4 through I4. There's A4, there's I4. I've chosen the right range. Now there's a special button called Orientation. Where is it? Home tab, Alignment Group. We're on the Home tab. Here's the Alignment Group. So one of these unlabeled buttons is going to be the Orientation button. You can just hover over the buttons and it'll tell you what each one means through the little thing that pops up. This one here is the Orientation button. And what it does is it allows us to spin the text around so that it's at different angles. Right now it's just flat down here like regular text in a book. When I chose this, we can start shifting the angle of the text. The instructions tell us to choose angle counterclockwise, so that's what I'm going to do. Back in Excel, Orientation Group, angle counterclockwise, and watch what happens to that range we've chosen. They get bigger, obviously, because now they've rotated it, but you'll see each of these labels, client name, address, phone number, are now at an angle to the rest of the text. Again, one of those one-button changes that radically alters the look. Now we're going to get a little manual on this one. This is going to be a lot like the Microsoft Word techniques that we have. So select A4 through A15. Here they are. It starts at A4 for me. moves to A15, and it wants me to hold down Control, and now I'm going to select some other things. Holding down, press down Control, press the mouse button on B4, go to I4. This is the same pair of ranges that we chose in the couple steps above. And we're going to make some super quick changes to this, just the way we would with text in Word. Take the font size drop-down list. We're going to change it to 12. That's this drop-down list here, font size. And I'll choose 12. You'll see as I do, all of the values in the cells change. I'm going to take 12 to make it official. Now they want us to change the font type from the drop-down list. There's our font drop-down list. Change it to Verdana. I use the little arrow, and I keep scrolling down, and I'm sick of scrolling down, so I'm just going to drag this little box to the bottom until I see Verdana, and there it is there. You can see as we click each of these, we see what the options will look like. I want Verdana, so it's official. There's the Verdana version. That finishes up through step C. We'll move up to D. We want this all to be bold. Bold is one of those most popular items when you're using Word. We all know bold as the little B bold button. And now we're going to make a couple alignment changes. This is a lot like how you align things on a page on Word. All you have to do is choose the ranges that you want. They want C5. See, I've got it right here. C5 down to C13. So I'll stop here. Then they want me to get another one. E5 through F13. Two new things here. One is they're not specifically telling us how we do that range where you hold down the mouse button and click. They're also not telling us how we do multiple selections at the same time. Remember, multiple selections is just holding Control on your keyboard. So I'm going to click down on that button now. And while I'm holding that down, I choose the next range. Starts with E5. You might hear a cat in the background. No way to prevent that. E5, and I'm holding the mouse button down. Now I go down to 13, but notice it doesn't say E13. It says F13. You can change entire rows in groups like this just by dragging the mouse over so that you can get as many as you want. It says I just want rows E and F. So I'll let go of the mouse here, let go of Control, and you'll see I have those three groups all listed. Those are now all selected, and anything I do will happen to all of them at the same time. So what it wants me to do is click Center. This is what a lot of people in Word use for putting their titles at the center of the page. We're going to click Center, and you'll see it will move whatever's in each of these cells to the center of the cell. So now this is in the middle of the cell, this is in the middle, that's in the middle. Quick way to see what happened. I'm going to undo that. Here's where they were. Here's where they are now. Original position, centered position. There's one more thing that it asks us to do. It wants A1 and A2 selected. So I selected those two, and it wants me to increase the font size. Notice in most things you would have to do this one by one, but it just wants us to increase the font size for both of them at once, so we chose that entire range, A1 and A2. And you'll notice there's an increase font size button. Instead of having to say, I want this one plus 2, and then say, I want this one plus 2, increasing font sizes changes both of them to the next largest size from whatever starting point they are. I'm going to click it once, and you'll see they're both getting bigger. Click it again, they get bigger again. And this gives us things at slightly different positions. I'm going to undo that twice so that you can see the changes. Here we are at 18. Here we are at 13. I'm going to select them both and do increase font size twice. They're both getting the larger font size. We're now going to, personally, I don't think that's the sort of result we want. We would want each one to increase one by one. But in this case, the software is automatically changing to so that they're both the same size. What I would have expected to happen is that this one goes up 2, and that one goes up 2, so that the bottom is still smaller. But if we do what the instruction says, and we select them both, then hit the font size button twice, they end up both at the same size. So that's something to watch out for, and it'll be interesting to see if the gradebook is going to accept that as the correct solution. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with an error final product, but we have followed the instructions exactly, which is the best we can ask. Now we're going to start getting into the numeric formatting, which if you look over here, you'll notice these are numbers, but they don't really look like numbers. And this step is going to let us change them so that they really do look like numbers. It says start with I5, move down to I15. That's what we want to work with. So I5 through I15. And now we want the comma style. What this is if you can see, we have some numbers in the thousands. Here's a 42,000. You can't really tell where the thousands are because there's no comma after the first 3. Here's the numbers group on the Home tab, and it has a comma style button, and when you press that, it makes it look more like easy to read numbers, like you'll often see money with the thousands followed by a comma before you get down to the hundreds. So we've added the comma here. Now let's make it a little more like money. We're going to choose I5. I5. We're going to press Control and select I15. So only those 2 cells are chosen. That's what Control does. It groups 2 different things together. And so now we have these 2. We're going to use Control 1, like we did a bunch of steps open before, so that we can see format cells again. So I'm holding down Control on the keyboard, pressing the 1 key. When I let them both go, here's that old Format Cells option. This time it says select the number tab, which is already open, and if we have to, select accounting. Again, this one's already chosen. What they want us to do is change the symbol that's in front. Right now there's nothing in front, so just change it to a $. Now the numbers will look like this. When we click OK, you'll see these 2 will instantly change, and now they have a number sign in there. Notice this one actually has this string of number signs. Why does that have that? That's just a sign that what's in there is too large to fit. If I were to grab the edge of this, I could manually make it bigger and you'd see the numbers appear. Now I don't want to do that because the instructions don't say to do that. When I return it to its regular size, this one has the $sign. This one you can't tell because the cell is just too small to see it all. There's one other type of formatting that we can change here. Notice all of these are dates, and they're spelled out so that you have the day of the week, the month, and then you get into the numbers. It says select H5 through H13, and we're going to change them to short dates. This is a very long way to write out the date. We can do that from the number format drop-down list. Home tab numbers group. Home tab numbers group. Here's the only drop-down list there, so that has to be the one. And it wants us to choose short date. You'll see here's what we have now, the long date. When we switch to short date, it just has the numbers like we often write them on homework pages. I'm going to click that now. You see all these options change. So here's the before, here's the after. Now it's time to make sure these things fit. We already have a problem down here with something not fitting and giving the number signs. So we're going to fix all of that. It asks us to choose A4 through I15. So I'm going to go up to A4. I'm going to go down to the 15s, over to the I's. Now we have A4 through I15, and I'll let go. We'll do the Format button again, Home tab, Cells group, Home tab, Cells group, and here's the Format option. We're going to take the easiest of the options where we're just going to let Excel figure out how big they should be. Auto fit the column width. When we let go, you'll see everything changes so that The addresses aren't any longer than the longest address. The names aren't any wider than the longest address. Everything perfectly fits. There are options where notice state has a little more padding on each side. That's because you need the entire word state to fit within the cell too. So sometimes the label is enough to set the column width as well. But again, think about how much quicker it is doing things this way than if you handled things in a more word table format. Step 13, press Control S to save the workbook. You'll see they have us do that an awful lot. I could do Control S on the keyboard. That's what they recommend you do. It's the exact same as if you press the save up here. So I'm going to do it this way so that you can see me do it. You can't see me touching the keyboard buttons. And we've really accomplished a lot with the style. Right now we're going to start talking about making some of the changes to the things that are in there, just so that you can see how easy this is. If you want to change a cell, all you have to do is click on where it is. They want us to change something in G9. Here's column G. Here's 9. And you'll see it says G9 here, so I know I have the right one. It wants me to get rid of the word software. Now I can't really do anything in here except replace what's there from scratch. But if you type up in the formula bar, just click there, hit backspace a bunch of times, you'll see that it not only does it get rid of it up here in the formula bar, but you'll see down here in the display it'll also get rid of it. And when we hit enter, it makes the change official. We've gotten rid of the word software. So there's the quick way to change anything that you've already typed that you decide you don't want. You don't have to type it from scratch. Just click the formula bar and do your typing there. Now we're going to change the width of the column. Notice this one actually makes things smaller when we take the word software out. That had been our largest. So we're gonna fix that and make this column smaller so it fits more appropriately. It says click the column G heading to select the column. Before we've been doing ranges where you get a specific number of cells, and we've been choosing about 11 or 12 at a time. The quick way to get this is if I click the letter itself for this column, the G in this case, you will see it selects everything forever. Here's the hundreds, here's the 180s, the 200s. This goes on for the entire length of the page, which these pages can be thousands and thousands of rows long. Just by clicking the G, this means the change we're going to make changes everything for the entire span of the document. And we could just do auto fit, and that would cover it. But let's learn a different way to do this that's a little more precise. It says click the Format button and select the column width from the menu. Here's what we chose before, auto fit. This time we're going to say column width, and it's going to let us type exactly what we want the column width to be, down to fractions of distance. We want 31.0, so I'll type that there, 31, and make sure you add the 0.0, and we'll click OK. Now it changes it to exactly 31.0 characters wide. So you can do auto, and it'll calculate it for you. If you want something specific, maybe you don't want it to be as thin as possible. Maybe you want it to leave extra space. Use this approach, and you can set exactly how many characters you want. We're done with 2 pages, and the last one is that summary page. So this is there's very, very little left for us to do. Here we're going to look at one of the other features we have. Let's say you type up this whole list, and you decide you want to add somebody, or you decide there's something that you want to see. The next 2 things we're going to see will give us those abilities. We're going to hide one of the rows. Let's say row 10 down here, where Ann Nickel is. We don't want to see that for some reason. Or perhaps we're showing somebody else the worksheet and we don't want them to be able to see it when they visit our desk. You can click the row heading for 10. We did column headings by clicking on the letters. We'll do the row headings by clicking on the numbers. And this whole row will be changed. And all we have to do is right click on it. That's using the right mouse button on your physical mouse. And you'll see that there's a hide option right near the bottom. When we click it, 10 is hidden. You'll see that little gray line here that shows you something is hidden in there, and you get this green marker across the side that shows something's hidden there. But the easiest way to notice is it goes from 9 to 11. So 10 is still there, it's just hidden. Now we're going to address that question, what happens if you want to add something? You forgot to put somebody in. and you want them in a specific place. I'm going to click the row heading for 11. Let's say we wanted somebody above Shelley Vicco. I'm just going to right click on row 11. You'll see there's an insert option. I click insert and it adds a row above where I was. It still goes 9, 11, but what used to be 11 is now 12. What used to be 12 is now 13. It's moved everything down for us. We've added a new row. Now it's time to insert this new text, and there's just a bunch of things we have to type. In the first grouping, it wants us to type Hillary March key, and then I'm going to just press the tab button and it'll take me to the next cell, and I can type the next bit of information. You'll see up here they just give us a list of things that we have to type, so I'm going to type them all. The address is 245 3rd Avenue. The phone number is 320-355-5443. Now you notice it's just a string of 10 numbers. That's what we're typing in. The moment that I hit tab, though, you'll see that it changes it to the format that we set up for this whole range. I tab, and now it looks like all the rest of the phone numbers. Location, St. Cloud. Now look, we've actually typed St. Cloud above. Excel recognizes that's one of the things that we type, and if we hit tab, it fills in the rest for us. We don't have to type anything besides the first letter. The more options you have, the more letters you might have to type. If you have 3 things that start with S, you might have to type another letter before it figures out what you want. But it does save a ton of time typing, because it'll find out if you've ever typed anything before and automatically fill it in for you before you have to finish typing. MN is the state again. The zip that they want is 56301. Training, again, this is we've seen other options you could type. It automatically fills in training for us. I hit tab and it moves along. The date that they want is 11/15/2015. And you'll see that automatically formats it as a date. And then in I11, they want the number for this row, which is 750.00. Now, before I hit enter, notice what we see over here. This is the sum of all the ones that we had above. It added together all of these categories, including the hidden one, and it came up with 69,906 and some change. I'm about to add 750 to it. Watch as I press enter. The number below is going to add 750 to it. So the formula down here, remember this is what we put here, the sum formula, using that auto sum button. The formula that we put in here is constantly watching the range of cells to see if you add or change anything, and when you do, it automatically changes it. This is one of the best features that you don't see in the other software. This is constantly watching the numbers and doing all of your calculations from scratch. You don't have to break out the calculator and find out what the new sum is. And what's also nice is if you had something that had this as part of the formula, as this changed, so would the thing that included this. It's kind of a snowball effect where if one change affects a ton of cells, all of them instantly change all at once. And you'll see we're on the right path here, because here's the preview of what it's supposed to look like. You'll even see that the number is the same, 70,656 and 18 cents. Things are looking really right here. We're basically done with the actual spreadsheet at this point. They just want you to realize that the sheet itself has its own identity, and we're going to tweak the way that the cell is referred to. We're going to rename and color what's called the Sheet tab. We've been talking about the ribbon tabs at the top of the screen. Don't confuse the language here. These are still ribbon tabs. The sheet tabs are the same idea, only at the bottom of the page. We have one sheet and it has a tab. Currently it's called Sheet 1. We could add another sheet and it would be Sheet 2. Another sheet would be Sheet 3, and we could switch between these. I'm going to undo this because I don't want those extra sheets. But you can't do it that way. I have to sneak ahead in the instruction sheet and delete them. We're back at Sheet 1. This is the only sheet that we really need, but it doesn't have all that great a name. So what I'm going to do is they say double click the Sheet 1 tab, and type in its new name, MN Clients. As I type, you see it replaces Sheet 1 with what I just typed. And when I hit enter, that's its new official name. It's gone from being Sheet 1 to being MN Clients. The moment I hit enter. I'm going to make another change to this, and that is right now it has just kind of a white background here. We're going to change its background color. I'm going to right click on this. It says point to tab color, and you'll see we were able to change the color on the tab. Scrolling up a little bit here and repeating where I was. Tab color. It wants orange accent 1 50% darker. Here's our orange accent 1s. Here's orange accent 1 50% darker. And when I click that, you'll see the background changes. Now it might not appear exactly like what we had, but it's a little lighter when that's the sheet you're looking at. I'm going to add a tab. Your instructions don't say to do this. This is just so you can see what's happening. I click the tab, and there's that orange accent 1 50% darker, as it looked like originally. There it is on the unchosen tab. It just looks lighter when we've chosen it. I'm going to get rid of sheet 4 because that was just for display. And now the tab is its own custom color. We're going to save the workbook again. Notice they didn't tell you how to do it. They're hoping that you've remembered that Control S does the job. I always use this button so you can see me save. So now we've saved the workbook. Just a couple tiny little things left. You can see we're almost at the bottom of page 3. They want us to give a bottom border. I'm going to go up to these A4 through A14 through I4 that they want, and I'll choose that. When I let go, A4, I got that right. Now I'm going to open up the formatting box, holding down Control, pressing the number 1. Here it is again, and everything we've done so far was the number tab. We can also adjust the border that's on the outside edge of a cell using this border tab. And you'll see a sample of what the cell looks like, and you can add all different types of lines, all different shapes where you place the lines, or you can control them individually. The top line is just here. The left line is just here. What did they want us to do? They want us to select the 5th line style in the second column. Second column, 5th line style, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the one that we want. Now we're going to pick a color for it. Orange accent 1 darker 50% from the color group. That's the same color we chose before, so I remember where it is. And you click that and you can see all the lines are now going to be brown, and it tells us that we should select the bottom border button. So here's the bottom, and you'll see it previews what it'll look like. We're adding a brown border to the bottom of it. And click OK. Hard to see it here. I'll move down though, and it's obvious there's a brown border down at the bottom. Last page, and this is more visual than anything else. You've essentially finished the worksheet at this point. Here's what they just want you to see, that there's a couple more abilities available here. The first one, click the View tab. We're going to change just how much we're zoomed in. This is something that you might want to remember that the software can do. This is starting to fill up the page quite a bit, and you've seen me moving back and forth, up and down, because it doesn't fit in my small section. If you choose the View tab and you go to the Zoom button, notice they're not telling you where these are again. They're making you search through yourself. You're getting more and more independent as this project goes on. It says choose 75% magnification. Zoom 75% and click OK. You'll see the entire sheet changes. It's smaller now. Now that causes problems where it's too small to see some of this, but the correct numbers are in there. Another thing is, just like you see in Microsoft Word, this has spell check too. It's the Review tab. It's the proofing group. There's spelling there. And it tells us to correct any misspellings. So I'll do a spell check. That's someone's street name. We don't want to change that. There's someone's first name. We don't want to change people's first names. There's their last name. You don't want to change people's names ever. I'll continue at the beginning to make sure. Nope, I don't change the last name. Spell check complete. You're good to go. So you can spell check an Excel sheet just like you're going to spell check a Word document. You can also preview this so that you see what it really looks like when it comes time to print something like this out. Before you waste a ton of paper, preview it. So from the File tab, select Print. Here's Print down here. And you can review what it's going to look like here. So here's a preview of what we're looking at. I will go back because it says to return to the worksheet. So I return to the worksheet with the back button. And now it wants me to return to 100% magnification. I could do that just by hitting the 100% button, but what they want you to see is down here, there's a little slider. You can grab this bar, make it as large as you want, make it as small as you want, and there's a little notch right in the middle where 100% goes. You can see the notch under it when I moved away. There's 100%. When I let go, I'm back to the size that I'd been working in as I made this project. One last real section of instructions. You can see save is already here. We're done. Save and close. The last thing that I want you to see though is how you can place this on a sheet of paper when you do print it. Display the Page Layout tab and click Page Setup Launcher. It's a new vocabulary word here. Page Layout tab is right. We find the Page Setup group, and this new vocabulary word is the launcher. That's that little button at the lower right corner. It'll open up a dialog box that does more than just what the buttons allow you to do. So when I click this, it gives me more options than we see up here. It says, first of all, change the page, select the Page tab, which is already chosen, and click Landscape. I click Landscape, and you see exactly it changes from the up and down style paper to the side paper. I've changed it to Landscape. Now they say click the Fit To option and choose 1 page wide by 1 page tall. 1 and 1. Those were our defaults, but we did have to switch to Fit To. And then finally, you can align, it says switch to the Margins tab. And one of the things that you can do is you can align how things appear on the page. By default, it aligns up in the upper left corner of the page, and the rest of the page is left blank. If you choose horizontally, which is what they ask us to do, you'll see it centers the entire sheet that we've been working on. So there it is now in the middle of the page when we print. Here's what it looks like without being centered. Here's what it looks like centered. There's another change that they want us to make to the page, and this is just like Word. You can add headers and footers to Excel worksheets when they are printed. You just use the header footer tab on Page Setup. And there are a number of automatic options. Here's the header, here's the footer, and it tells us to here's a bunch of default things. We could have the page number on it, the page number and the total pages. Here's the tab name. That's what they want us to choose. We have a couple different options, including the file name. It just says chose the MN Clients option. And what that's going to do is it's going to print MN Clients at the bottom of every single page when we print. I'm going to OK it. And we have completed the project. This is ready to now be saved and uploaded to the website. So you can use Control S if you've gotten used to that. I'm going to use the button that I always use so you can see me do it. I'm going to close the workbook, which I'll just close Excel as a whole. And it's time to upload the project and submit it. You see, the moment I closed Excel, I went back to the SimNet section, and it's time to upload my file. Assuming that I used their start file, which was I went into detail about at the start. In my Documents folder, I'll have that file that I just created. You can check your date and time to make sure that it was just you saved it just a minute or so ago. And I'm going to click that file and say Open. It's going to upload it and get ready to submit the file. If you make sure that this is the right file, you chose the right name, everything is what you want, then you can submit it. It's going to instantly grade it, instantly prepare the result, and you're going to see the product of your work instantly. Here comes your grade automatically. You'll notice, even though it seemed counterintuitive at the top that these two things were going to be changed, this one started out bigger than that one. We followed the instructions properly. That is what they expected. We got our 100 out of 100. So here's the path to being able to instantly see your results. And you can even go through each one individually and see where the different steps are. There's an A5, a 5A here. You'll be able to find where 5A is over here. So you'll be able to analyze both your successes and your mistakes in this final product. Hopefully this gets you started really well with Microsoft Excel. Just the simple thought of being able to do either a number or text or a formula is really a big deal when you add in all this different formatting, and you can end up with these built-in calculations that automatically update, automatic styles where you're turning things into money symbols and phone number identifications and swapping between date styles, changing whole rows just by grabbing different styles along the way, merging and centering cells across the top, all these different things, including the hidden cells here in the added cell that we did. This allows you to do really amazing things with Excel. Remember, this is chapter 1, and we've already created a document that looks like this and has so much power to it. In future chapters, we're going to be talking about the formulas that you see here, how we start to add graphics to this, how we start to add styles, and even ways that we can send our file along to be viewed and manipulated by others in really interesting pre-made ways. Excel is an amazing piece of software. Hopefully you now understand the basic foundations of it, what it's capable of, and you have the proper working vocabulary to be able to discuss this with not just yourself, but potentially future employers and coworkers that will be using Excel along with you. I'll see everybody in the next video. Until then, I hope you might open up your file again and do a little experimenting with the skills that you picked up in this video.